illegally, right? This is literally a lifeline for many immigrant adults across the state. And at a time of, intense xenophobia and attacks on federal funding impacting immigrant communities, we think it's really important for the state to step up and meet the need that is there in terms of providing health care for immigrant adults.
Hardworking Illinois citizens should not have to pay for benefits for those who have entered our country illegally. And our citizens will certainly be appalled if they are forced to pay more taxes again to pay for people that are here illegally.
It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, and that was some of the back and forth expected to be heard throughout the legislative session, which wraps up May 31st as lawmakers get ready to approve a budget. It is Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning. Happy Friday. And we've got a pretty long month ahead of us, and it's just going to be rapid fire as well. Not only are Illinois legislators going to wrap up legislative session at the end of May, they're going to have to pass a $55 billion budget that is the largest spending plan in state history, while they also look at a whole host of other priorities. Hundreds of new bills could advance into laws by the end of the month. But clearly, the most important thing they got to do is figure out how to spend your tax dollars for the fiscal year that starts July 1st. So Illinois' fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. It's not the calendar year. So that's why May 31st is that deadline to get a fiscal plan together for the next fiscal year 1 month before the fiscal year begins, so that the governor can ultimately sign it and enact it and such. So we're in this phase now where there's going to be some pretty heated conversations about priorities and spending and just exactly how much the state is going to tax people and all of that. So let's get to it with some of the conversations that have been had over the past couple of days. State Representative Noreen Hammond, State Representative Amy Ellick, and State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, they held a news conference yesterday to discuss what they said was, the budget deadline looming. And Noreen Hammond said that she felt that, while Republicans have been involved at a 10,000-foot level, they really haven't been able to get to the nitty-gritty details, and that's alarming to Hammond, who's been around the State House for a bit.
We've had preliminary discussions with our colleagues, the House Democratic budgeteers. I wouldn't characterize that as any true meaningful discussions. We have broached a few subjects, but pretty much at about a 10,000-foot level. So, but if history serves us correctly, that's a signal that the Democrat majority will go it alone, and they will continue to increase wasteful spending and absolutely continue to raise taxes on hardworking Illinois families.
And Hammond talked about some of the proposals that have been floated thus far, and in particular, the amount of taxes one group is saying that the state needs to increase.
And this week, the Illinois Revenue Alliance, aka the Tax and Spend Alliance, presented a list of tax hikes that would raise taxes by $6 billion, and that does not include the graduated income tax hike. $6 billion in new taxes to pay for taxpayer-funded health care benefits for illegal immigrants, more pork projects for Democrats, and more of their wasteful spending on programs. These tax hikes would further damage our economy and drive up the tax burden and the cost of living for Illinois families. I want to focus on what I consider to be the most egregious
And that was
these tax hike proposals.
The estate tax proposal that this group is saying needs to be slashed in half. So instead of the level of exemption being $4 million, it would be $2 million, which would wrap in a whole host, not just family farms, but even somebody who owns a mechanic shop and wants to have their family inherit it. Or whatever the case may be, small businesses. The push, though, at the State House has been to increase that threshold from $4 to $6 million. So fewer people would have to pay that estate tax. But this group is looking at that, slashing it in half, and a whole host of other taxes they say would raise $6 billion. Now, is that likely going to cross? No, but there could be some things from that menu item, that $6 billion menu item to do piecemeal. So we'll see what happens. But when it comes to the budget and when taxpayers are going to actually see it, that's a great question. I talked with Democratic State Senator Laura Murphy yesterday at the State House, and I asked her where we're at with the budget process.
So I'll tell you, we have been diligently holding hearings, meeting with all the different departments, which we do on every budget. But I think you might have seen a little closer scrutiny in some of our budget hearings because they've lasted a significant amount longer. It was nothing to have 4 or 5 hour, at least I can only obviously speak for the Senate, but we've had significant ability to delve into the budgets, and this has been on a bipartisan faction because our committees are structured with both Democrats and Republicans in the room. So we try to delve into each department because it's going to be a tight budget, and we need to ensure that where there are areas that we can economize, areas where we can work to ensure that they're optimizing every dollar they're spending, we want to look at that. Then we'll get together and we will discuss all that we've learned. Well, and that, again, we have given voice to everybody that wanted a voice via our committee structure, which is how the legislature is structured.
And they've had committees in the House. State Representative Amy Ellick, a Republican from Alton, is on the House Appropriations General Services Committee, and she says that they just wrapped up their hearings, and she's not really seeing anywhere that agencies are doing substantive reforms, cuts, or efficiencies.
Back in November, Deputy Governor Menard sent a letter to all the agencies, which was publicized, that talked about, hey, agencies, you need to find your efficiencies, find your cuts, and be prepared. We've had absolutely no communication on what those agencies came up with, and when asked in budget hearings, they generally hem and haw and say, well, we were trying to be more efficient by reducing a little bit here, but there's been nothing significant that indicates that they're cutting expenses internally. In fact, there are pay raises involved, the COLA increases.
So a lot of increases kind of baked into the annual budget plans, but when I asked Senator Murphy to respond saying, hey, some Republicans say they haven't seen substantive cuts yet, here's what her response was.
Now, if they weren't in a particular committee, agency department heads have made themselves available to any legislator to ask any additional questions. We have in committee often asked for additional information. It goes to every committee member. I've called in a number of department heads individually. If I had additional questions I wanted asked, they are available to do that.
And then,
So clearly, they're saying at this point, 4 weeks before the end of legislative session, that agency heads are willing to have conversations about efficiencies, but Republicans are saying the committees, they really haven't heard anything about cuts or savings to taxpayers that they can find. With a, quote, tight budget year, again, the most expensive state budget, $55 billion. Just when I started covering the State House 11 years ago, I think the budget was like $36 billion, so you could see how much it's increased. But what about DOGE? What about the Department of Government Efficiency? Of course, a Trump administration initiative for the federal government, and they claim to have saved tens of billions of dollars just by going through various contracts and such. I asked Amy Ellick about that, and she said, yeah, we need to be more there needs to be more sunlight and oversight of what's going on with contracts to non-government organizations, and a DOGE type approach could help with that. Well, Laura Murphy, Democrat state senator, doesn't like the heavy-handed DOGE approach.
So, we look to find effective and efficient use of taxpayer dollars every time. We go through the budget line item by line item. I think the problem with DOGE and what you're going to see is if they used a scalpel, that would be fine. But the chainsaw approach is just too much. And so there are programs that there is not possibility for a legislator to know the ins and outs of every single program and the effectiveness in it. But I think you've seen the General Assembly move to a more data-driven environment. We are requesting data from all of those agencies to justify their expenditures. But we're going to take a scalpel rather than a chainsaw.
So Murphy talking about making sure that you don't just completely disrupt these organizations that are getting this money. I'm doing some more. Maybe I'll have some time today with the legislature out, but just going through the Illinois Comptroller's checkbook and doing searches for these different nonprofits. There's millions and tens of millions of dollars going out, if not hundreds of millions of dollars going out for non-government organizations. Your tax dollars going to essentially help, I don't know, like for instance, some chamber of commerce somewhere around the state getting $500,000 to help conduct training seminars or something. Is that the best use of the tax dollars? Not sure. I guess we'll have to see. But something else we'll have to wait and see is what's going to happen with the health benefits for immigrant seniors, because that is a sticky point for Republicans and Democrats, as the governor has decided to pull back on the health benefits for immigrant adults program. This is Grace Pye. She's with Asians Advance in Chicago. Earlier this week, she talked about how the governor needs to restore that, and they need to increase funds to pay for more immigrant services.
PAVE Coalition has also endorsed the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights legislative platform, which includes preventing cuts to HBIA. We are, of course, deeply concerned about the impact that cuts to that program will have on everyday people, right? That's their only lifeline to healthcare, right? To any preventative care, if there's an emergency, right? This is literally a lifeline for many immigrant adults across the state. And at a time of, intense xenophobia and attacks on federal funding impacting immigrant communities, we think it's really important for the state to step up and meet the need that is there in terms of providing health care for immigrant adults.
But again, how do you do that? The governor has said anybody who wants to increase a program or create a new program that was not in his proposed budget from back in February, then they have to come to the table and find cuts. Or, I guess, more revenue. Pye was asked that question earlier this week, and here's what she had to say.
Mm-hmm. Budgets are moral documents. Every budget is a choice about who we want to prioritize and who's important. We need to be prioritizing immigrants, especially in this moment, and we need to be raising progressive revenue in order to be able to do so. Right? The money concerns are real, and the money is there in our state. We need to be asking corporations and the super rich to pay their fair share, and that's part of why the PAVE Coalition has advocated for progressive revenue in this year's budget.
Again, the question of what programs are going to take priority. We've seen the health benefits for immigrant seniors and the health benefits for immigrant adults program with cost overruns into the hundreds of millions of dollars. All kinds of errors being made as to some people have Social Security numbers, when they're not supposed to if they're part of this program. Excuse me. So obviously, with the governor recognizing a tight budget year, getting rid of the health benefits for immigrant adults program, you have people at the State House showing up saying that they want that program restored, if not funded more. State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer with Republicans yesterday saying that is not going to go well for taxpayers.
As the sponsor of House Bill 1456, which would end taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants, I strongly urge the General Assembly to take up this bill and repeal this program, this horrible abuse of our taxpayer dollars. Hardworking Illinois citizens should not have to pay for benefits for those who have entered our country illegally, and our citizens will certainly be appalled if they are forced to pay more taxes again to pay for people that are here illegally. While progressive Democrats are demanding tax hikes for more wasteful spending, Governor Pritzker is spending his time stumping around the country for his political aspirations. Even worse, Pritzker is resorting to inflammatory, dangerous rhetoric in his attacks of President Trump and Republicans.
And it feels like things are just getting started. But we've got less than 4 weeks before the end of legislative session, and the deadline to pass a budget with simple majorities. And I think that's what people need to understand here is May 31st, if you want something to be enacted right away, you have to have simple majorities. So 61 in the House, for instance. But after May 31st, if you want something to take effect immediately, you have to have a supermajority, which means at least, 72 72 or 71. Either way, there's a super duper majority in the in the Illinois House of Democrats. So that gives them the ability to have some Democrats not vote for the budget. There's going to be some interesting games played. Let's just put it that way. We'll be on the ground with the Center Square every day of legislative session. I'm Associate Editor Greg Bishop with Illinois in Focus. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, man. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily.